Travis Tooke here, and I'm here with one of my favorite people, Jorge Maldonado. George is a student here at my martial arts academy. He is also my guitar teacher, so we have a pretty unique relationship. He's my coach, I'm his coach. We're each students of a different art, and we're always talking about the parallels between Jiu jitsu and music, because there are so many similarities when it comes to both learning and teaching, and the fact that this is a lifelong pursuit. So I figured we talk a little bit today about the importance of persistence from our perspectives as instructors, and share that with you guys. So, George, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
So we're always talking, and we finally put a camera on. So you've been a student of Jiu Jitsu for several years now, but you've been a student, a teacher, and a master of music, in particular guitar, for most of your life.
Yeah, over 20 years.
What is it about, what are some of the challenges that you see from a teacher's perspective with students, in particular students that maybe give up a little too easily?
Well, it's a little bit like what I experienced some of that myself when I first started. There are some, at every level of guitar, even now, there are going to be techniques that are going to challenge you, right? And I think at the very entry level, probably it's going to be chords, like, oh, I can't get the chords to ring, and people struggle with that. And then the very next thing is probably going to be bar chords that people have a hard time with, and specifically with guitar. But other instruments have their own challenges and stuff. And then maybe, string bands, and then the development of speed and coordination. And at any one of those points, you hit a wall, and then you have to grind it out. You have to practice and practice and practice and practice. And it helps to have the guidance of a teacher, but ultimately it falls to the student to do the drills every day. You don't have to do it for hours and hours and hours. That's a misconception. All you have to do is focus, drilling time, 5, 10, 15 minutes, and then take a break. And just that little bit of extra effort is going to get you through that. And what happens is the students, especially the ones that have had it easy in the beginning, it's like, oh, and they're constantly getting patted in the back, man, you're so talented, you're getting this easily, and and then they hit that wall, and they're like, oh, maybe I suck.
Right. Yeah.
So then, rather than face that, right, and grind it out, they decide, you know what, if I quit, then I don't have to face that challenge.
I can go off on a high note.
Yes.
Well, I mean, the same thing happens in Jiu Jitsu. I think it goes for like any skill. If you have a certain talent for a skill, you're going to feel successful earlier on than the average student. So if you're a good athlete in Jiu Jitsu, you can kind of rise to the top above somebody else starting at the same time as you, because you're faster, you're more agile, you can manhandle them a little bit.
Sure.
And I imagine, with guitar, somebody who just has more of a natural feel to it, has more flexibility or better movement of their fingers, things will be a little bit less challenging at the beginning. But it doesn't matter. I went through this with Jiu Jitsu. I was a decent athlete going into Jiu Jitsu. Then it was like going against other new people. I had an advantage. Going against my first blue belt quickly put me back into place. And now being a student of guitar, I love it, but I don't have that natural ability. So it is fun to learn and be a student again. I think it actually helps my teaching ability to be in the shoes of somebody who's essentially a white belt, of music.
Well, because that's the other thing. I think that's what they call the expert syndrome.
Yeah.
Where you assume that everybody else knows what you know, and it's very sneaky. It sneaks up on you. That's why I like doing things that I don't find easy, right? Like, I got back into striking, and I'm not comfortable with striking at all. I'm finally getting to the point where I'm a little bit comfortable with Jiu Jitsu, but in striking, I'm so uncomfortable.
Right.
So I went back into it, so I had that feeling of like, oh, my feet and my hands are not moving together, right? I'm learning Japanese, which is difficult.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I'm always trying to learn things that don't come easy to me. So when a student of mine is struggling, I can relate. Maybe not on the musical side, but I can look at, man, I know exactly what it's like to struggle with a new concept. And then use the same learning strategies that I use with myself, with my students. So the big thing was like taking a big problem that's overwhelming and chopping it into tiny little pieces that the student can then understand. And then you don't have to tackle all of the pieces of the problem all at once, but you solve one or two of the problems that will get you until you finally solve the big problem, right? And so you're right. It absolutely, being a constant or a permanent student makes you a better teacher.
And I would say being consistent too. I've had students in the past who are inconsistent and they try to cram all their training into one really intense class during the week. So like, well, I'm going to be lazy Monday through Friday, but I'm going to come to the competition class and I'm going to spar for 2 hours, and that should make up for my missed classes throughout the week. And it never does, because for one, it's more dangerous because they're going almost too intense and less focused during that class and trying to make it all up. And there's too much gap in between. And I know I'm like that with guitar as well. I've done that where I've been lazy, and you can tell when if we have lessons if I have not been practicing. But it's like I didn't have time today, I'll do it tomorrow. I didn't have time today, I'll do it tomorrow. And then at the end of the week, it's like, okay, I'll do an hour straight. And that's never as good as 6 days in a row of 10 minutes at a time.
Yes, I was gonna bring up, not you, but I was gonna bring up that type of student, the one that they procrastinate their practice until the day before the lesson. Right now it's go time, they have the pressure, man, I'm gonna see George tomorrow, I better just cram in and practice for 2 hours, and then show up and I'm like, man, practice for
it's
2
like
hours
for a test.
Yeah, practice for 2 hours yesterday, my fingers hurt, they can barely play, and it's better than nothing, right? Doing that is better than not doing anything, but it's definitely more effective to practice less every day.
So what are some of the challenges, and how do you help students overcome that problem? Somebody being able to play an instrument is an amazing feeling, but it rarely comes. There's really a big breakthrough overnight. It's you're a little bit better, you feel a little bit more excited about where you were last week, but you never go from just picking up an instrument the first time to playing a full song the next time.
Right.
It's little improvements, and in between the improvements is more, especially at the beginning, and this is exactly like Jiu jitsu, there is more frustration and a feeling of, I really don't know what I'm doing. So how do you work with a student who has a desire to learn, they love the idea of being at that level, but they have not experienced mastering anything else, and so they don't really know that it's possible, that they might not even realize, they might not even see their own progression because they don't feel it day by day.
Totally, no, and it sounds crazy, but I have this conversation with them. I explain to them how mastery works, right? And how you develop things just a little bit at a time. And then the other thing that's important is the first thing that you teach them, you make sure that it's something that there's no way they can mess up. So they get a win right off the bat, they're getting it right, and it feels good. And then, some of that, you have to be observant and see what kind of motor skills you're dealing with and stuff like that. It could be anything as simple as, specifically to guitar, like alternate picking on a single string with nothing on the left hand. One hand, down, up, down, up, down, up on every string. And most students get that. And then you give them a little challenge for the next time. Like, okay, well now for next week, try to get it like this. And it's just a little step up. The thing that I like to bring up with them, and I think I've had this talk with just about every one of my students, is the concept of when you first are learning something, right, on anything new, everything is difficult and most things are impossible, right? So our goal is to take the difficult things and make them manageable So the impossible things are difficult.
Yeah.
So you are leveling up, and with the kids it's easy because they play video games.
Yeah.
So you bring up the concept of like reaching up a level, right? Moving up to the next level, leveling up. And most of the kids they get that concept because they've done it. They may not have practiced anything in life, but they played. The kids, especially the kids who haven't done anything, they haven't mastered anything. Those kids have mastered video games. That's why they haven't mastered anything. They spend their time playing video games.
And that's interesting because so many parents talk about kids wasting their time with video games, and there is something to be said about playing too many video games and not socializing and everything, the potential problems that can go with that. But there's no doubt that they are learning a skill that requires the same the same levels of learning. It starts off frustrating. They learn how to push a button or two, and then they start to put everything together.
Well, it's essentially computer-assisted problem solving.
Yeah.
Right? So again, I'm not saying spend all your time playing video games.
Just half your time.
But what I'm saying is like
suck at video games.
It's not an activity devoid of value.
Right.
And you can translate some of those skills, or at least the principles that you learn from them. It's like, oh, well, if you fail at a level, you keep doing it over and over and over and over again, right, until you master that level. And I know I'm showing my age because the games that do that, they don't really exist anymore. but actually, there's that's a little bit of what I was talking about in the beginning. You look at a technique, and it's overwhelming. It's a huge problem, and you have to deal with a lot of things, and that's true at the beginning too. And at the very beginning, the issue is coordinating both hands. That's a lot going on. You have to control the position of your fingers on the left hand. You have to track where the pick is on the right hand, whether you're doing an upstroke or a downstroke, right? And so in Jiu Jitsu, you have all the different grips, and whether you're pushing or pulling with the different limbs, where your hips have to move, how are you going to spin, how do you engage your core, and you have all these things going on at the same time. But if you break it down into, okay, well, just do this piece of the move, right? Like the way you teach the armbar from guard, right? So just do this first portion of the move. On guitar, the same thing. Just do this one piece of the move, and see how that works. That's how you tackle bigger problems, technical problems.
Right. Well, I feel like we should wrap it up because otherwise we could talk forever. And eventually we're going to get onto like 3 or 4 subjects, so we'll just have to make more videos. But hopefully this wasn't too all over the place for you, and you guys enjoyed this video. If you have reached a high level of any particular craft or skill, I highly recommend taking on something where you get to be a beginner again. That's one of the most fun challenges that I've done is picking up the guitar later in life when I don't have the advantage of my brain working like a child, and I have to really step back and try to learn something all over again. But you will be able to apply the techniques you use to learn what you're great at to the new skill that you want to learn. So, George, thanks again. Where can they find you to get some great lessons?
You can find us at www.firehousemusic.net. We're located at Louetta and Champion Forest, right in that shopping strip.
Cool, and I'll put a link in the description. So,
awesome.
All right, thank you guys for watching.